Today's thesis statement is, when your gut instinct is telling you to snoop around. And I remember that as probably as, young fourth, maybe coming into fifth, maybe probably fourth, like 9 or 10 years old. There was a crawl space in the house. And I remember, my mother and stepfather would be away on weekends regularly, or whenever they were away, I remember sneaking around, just going to the crawl space. I always thought that I would find some kind of secret box, or pushing some of the bricks. Maybe there's a secret thing. Starting to rummage through just belongings of the house, so to speak, and in the hopes of finding something that would explain the gnawing feeling that I had inside of me. And you look at it everywhere. I mean, I think when anybody, kid or adult, they have like some kind of feeling, sensation. They can't really quite place it. They don't know how. And you're gonna make the whatever the narrative is. I think we make whatever narrative works. So we fill in the details to that end of whatever works. I mean, when a kid doesn't understand what's going on, they fill in details. That's why some kids think certain things are their fault when it's not. Has nothing to do with it. But they can't comprehend, and so nobody's filling them in on the pieces that are missing out of their jigsaw puzzle. So they just fill in those pieces based on the best estimates, guesstimates that they got. I think everybody does that. Kids, teenagers, young adults. I mean, you're just going to do that. And some people have that beautiful self-assurance that I'm certainly envious of that they'll just listen to their gut instinct, wrong or right, and in their mind they're never ever wrong. Even when they are absolutely 100% wrong, whether it's ego or whether it's self-protection or coping, if one ever shows the fallibility of a gut instinct, if gut instincts are fallible, let's say it's only 83% accurate, gut instinct, then there's always that plausible possibility that one is wrong. But if a person believes in their gut instincts like foolproof, and all it takes is just belief, right? I mean, there's no way to use case it, right? There's no way to control group it. There's no way to scientifically data point it. Like earlier today, I felt I shouldn't go into this particular Trader Joe's. I felt I should go to another particular Trader Joe's. And it's gnawing at me. There's a couple of times where I'm thinking about it in the car, just go to the other one. On the way, walking into the Trader Joe's, go to the other one. And then when I'm at the Trader Joe's and it didn't have the particular product that I wanted, it had a variation of it, but the particular one that I wanted, and I'm thinking, I should get out. And then I end up, seeing a person that I'm not, that I didn't need to see, or this and that. But, side note, but the point of it is gut instinct. If I had the confidence and wherewithal, now there's no way to prove it, because if I would have trusted my gut and I would have went to the other Trader Joe's right away, there's no way to tell what would have waited for me in the other one. You can't hindsight it, right? It's just about trust. It's about trust and faith. And so I'm walking around trying to piece together things, and it just doesn't feel right. So I start looking everywhere. I start looking in drawers, in garages, and just anywhere that I can think of, whether it was in the U.S., whether it was in Israel, or relatives' homes. And that type of snooping became normalized for me for a number of years, and that kind of led up to other things, where in the name of trying to find some kind of proof that validates, a sensation or contention or feeling, you end up kind of discovering other things that maybe would have never been discovered, in that sense. but what I'm getting at in tonight's thesis is really, the searching for validation of one's gut instincts. Some people don't need to be validated. It's self-validating. It's amazing. There's that gut instinct, that feeling. I'm going to interpret it this way, and I'm going to go with it. And I don't know whether it's because you have a good support system. I don't know if it's because people are validating you early on and those mechanics are there. Like, if you don't feel comfortable in a situation, get out. Therefore, in future instances, you don't feel comfortable in a situation, you get out. It doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. You felt it, get out. As opposed to other people feeling it and you say, come on, deal with it. Or come on, put on a different face. Or come on, smile through it. Or, it'll just be 5 minutes when it turns out to be an hour. Whatever the bullshit reason, excuse, or any of that stuff is. But some people just trust their gut amazingly, and without doubting. And what I find interesting about our world is that, let's even take fear or a threat. Let's even take a threat. So perception of a threat is what would make somebody behave or react or take action. It's not the reality of a threat, right? I mean, like, it's not the reality of a threat. I'm not saying that there's not a correspondence, that there's a reality of a threat, in which case somebody feels like they're being threatened and therefore they act in accordance and it just happens to work. I'm not talking about that use case. I'm talking about the use case where there is no real threat, but the threat is absolutely being perceived by the other person. Then you say, well, how can you know that? You know what? Fuck all y'all. The person individually inside themselves knows what they were feeling as a threat, and the rest of us know the situation perhaps objectively of when there was no threat. It could be any situation, right, that one can think about. It's that particular situation. It's where there's no threat and one perceives a threat. It's the idea that one can be so scared around the corner, thinking somebody's chasing them, and all they're thinking is like they're not even thinking who the person would be. They're like, I'm just going to lash out at the first person that comes at me. And maybe it's somebody they know. Maybe it's just somebody that doesn't know. Maybe it's somebody that has nothing to do with them, and they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's the perception of the threat that makes somebody act a certain way, right? It's the other way around, right? There may be an absolute threat, and you don't think of it, you don't react to it, you don't treat it as a threat, you don't give it a respect, and geez, you're going to be fearless or appearing fearless, and maybe that's when you look like, maybe that's what stupidity looks like. Is like in the face of a threat, you're just laughing at it, almost without realizing the threat. Maybe that's when people thinking that somebody else is bluffing. And so they look at it that way. But it all leads up to, how does one personally feel? And so you're wandering around, you got half-assed information of a jigsaw puzzle, or I got it, half-assed information of a jigsaw puzzle, and we're just trying to piece things together as to how something works, and I'm looking at any information to just any jigsaw puzzle. Let me plop it in there. Does it make sense? And it's not even, here's the weird thing about all this. It's not like there's an end vision of, like, the jigsaw says to you, this is what the picture is going to look like. If there was no picture on the jigsaw puzzle, and you didn't know how many parts and all that stuff, would you know even what you were making? Would you even know what to look for? No, you would just start piecing it together, and maybe they somehow fit, maybe they somehow don't. But if you don't know what you're making, if you don't know what the end result is, then maybe it's different. Maybe there's holes where there shouldn't be, or vice versa, and this or that. But this is really just about, at what point in time does a kid trust their own gut versus trusting the words of others? And there's discernment there, right? The ability to, have the correct information versus disinformation. How can you tell? How can anybody tell? Well, if you're fully believing in your gut instincts 100%, well, then that's your feelings. Even if your marks in reality are only 83%, you'll never know, right? So you might as well go with 100. I myself personally can't somehow trick myself into that. modality. I guess it's just because I'm so aware that how can I possibly be 100% right? And maybe the person who doesn't believe that they're 100% right actually is 100% right, and they can never tell it. If I would have gone to the other Trader Joe's, I would have never known I was right. And then the question is am I right consistently, or am I only emphasizing the times that it feels right, or correlates, or corresponds? And those are the examples that stay in my head, and in which case that is how it influences my future judgments. Does it stay in my head that I was wrong most of the time? Does it stay in my head that I was correct most of the time? How is that feeling? And how does that relate to my future judgments or discerning qualities? Well, anyway, so rummaging around the house, looking around for details, or anybody's house, my family members, different, grandparents, looking just for anything and everything, until you kind of, it's one of those, be careful what you're looking for, because you might find it, right? Or you might find something else. So, thanks for listening.